Welcome to Fireside Fedi, episode 17. I'm your host, Ozone. Fireside Fedi is a show where we talk about folks within the Fediverse. You're seeing this, you are part of the Fediverse. With me today is Neil Brown. Neil is an English, internet, telecoms, and tech lawyer. Also, for those that don't know, Neil has a twin brother who might be joining us or might not. And Neil enjoys free and open source software as well as puns. Some terrible, terrible puns, which I find to be very funny. And I think you offer a very unique point of view in the Fediverse that, hopefully can help us navigate turbulent times. And maybe when it comes to it, maybe help corporations navigate onto the Fediverse. I don't know. We'll see. But Neil, thank you so much for joining me and welcome.
Dr. A, for that. So thank you for setting that up before I come on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
It's downhill from here, basically, isn't it?
Who would it have been worse? Like if I was like, I don't even know who would be. Well, I actually don't know who would be.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty much it, right?
That's pretty bad. I mean, I've read Corey's books for years, followed Corey's lines of thinking on things, the way he approaches stuff. And yeah, that's a
yeah.
So I tend to go for the ebooks rather than the hard copies.
I'm an old man.
Corey's approach to DRM, and I want to sell my books. I want to earn from my writing, but I also want you to be able to use them on the devices that you want to use and not tied into a big platform. That's what I really go for. So yeah, you set the benchmark high. That's all I'm saying. And now you've got me. But yeah.
Okay. Well, but before we get so how would you like folks to address you? Mr. Brown, Neil Brown,
Neil.
English lawyer.
Neil.
Okay.
Yeah. And anything else sounds like I'm in trouble.
You are. I mean, you're on the show, so.
Yeah.
But
I'm here. I'm committed.
And I mean, it's interesting that you say though, that it's nerve-wracking to be on there, right? Like, you're not Cory Doctorow. And I've had these conversations, not just with, in shows like this, but I've had to take the place of men that literally are geniuses. And the first thing I tell managers is like, I'm not them. And, you are, again, distinctly you. And I think you have a very unique take on everything, and you view the world differently than he does, and it is not less valuable. And I'm very honored and very excited to have you on.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and I'm definitely me. That much I can agree with.
As far as we know. Again, we were talking earlier, the camera might be fake, you might be an AI, but this is the second time we're talking. So
it is, and I think I looked much the same last time. Although, to be fair, I had a haircut for this. It's not easy to tell, but I did.
I just buzz my hair all the time, so I wish I didn't need a haircut.
It's not worth going to a barber, is it?
No, it's not.
£20 for a haircut, £1 for the haircut, £19 to find what you're cutting or something. So, yeah, not worth it.
So, Neil, we're going to start off with a very easy question, which is, how did you get to where you're at today?
Oh, I just walked across the garden.
Oh, there you go.
Very easy. I mean, if it was a slightly broader question of how did I end up here, I mean, a series of bad decisions, to be perfectly honest. I wanted to be a lawyer for as long as I can remember, and when I was going through university,
so you've always hated yourself.
I wouldn't put it in those terms, but I can understand why you do.
No, again, as I was telling Neil earlier, my background's criminal justice. I actually found it very fascinating. I just didn't think I could do the lawyer part. Lots of paperwork, like lots of looking between the cracks. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I always wanted to be a lawyer for as long as I can remember. And when I was going through university, I always wanted to do family law. And one morning I just woke up thinking, not really sure that's how I want to spend my life. And 3G phone networks were just launching, and that I found absolutely fascinating. So I switched my dissertation from writing about some family law topic to about regulation of third generation cellular networks. And yeah, it kind of went from there.
That's where. So again, in your Mastodon post, you call yourself a internet telecoms and tech lawyer. Did something like that exist before then? Because we've always had, not always, for since well before us, we had telecommunications law, right? Like even wire or postage, right? That's
Yeah.
some kind of communications. Was this a field that was existing when you started, or you're just like, hell with it, I'll just go in and act like I know what I'm doing, and
So I guess it's a kind of mix of fields that we've had IT law, information technology law, for ages. But you go back the 80s, early 90s, I want to say, and there was a US law professor who said, computer law, that's basically like law of the horse. Why would anyone be so specialist, so focused that all talk about, computer law? Look at the bigger picture. And now I look at what I do, and it covers such a broad range of things. I feel really lucky I started when I did, because when I was a student, the IT law textbook was sort of that thick. And now you look at, you've got telecoms law, and you've got a treatise on internet law, and here are considerations around AI, data protection. It's, for someone starting in the field now, I think it's massively harder than when I did it 20 years ago.
that's and it's interesting to look at it through that lens, because a teacher specifically in law, doesn't have that kind of same connection to technology that we do, right? So they didn't see the explosive nature that we have today, and it's only getting crazier, right?
I don't know. I had two fantastic tutors at university, Steve Saxby and Caroline Wilson, and I imagine that for when they started looking and thinking about these things, they too saw changes. Whether the changes are more pronounced now, I mean, some of the changes are more annoying when I start looking at AI and things around that. But I think there's always been that degree of change and that degree of flux. But for me, at uni, certainly, I probably spent as much time doing computer sciencey, computer engineering-y, techie stuff as I did law stuff. And decided, maybe that's the way my career would go. So I spent 10 years working in-house for a telecoms company doing internet law, cybersecurity, child safety, a whole range of bits and pieces. And I loved it. I learned loads. And about 10, my wife is a lawyer as well. And about 10, 11 years ago, we went for a walk one evening and thought, yeah, we like what we do, but wouldn't it be nice to do it for more people? So why don't we set up our own law firm? How hard can it be? And Sandra, my wife, had worked in a law firm before for a couple of years. I never had. We went for a walk around the block and thought, it can't be that difficult to do it. And this is now our 10th year of running a law firm.
Yeah. No, and it's as someone that's setting up their own business, I had the same thought. Like, how hard could it be? And the amount of paperwork and like regulations. I just talked to an accountant on Friday, and I told my wife, like, I don't care what she costs. Like, instantly having someone experience and just handling the money, let alone getting a lawyer and all the other stuff. And it's like, it's mind-boggling complex. I mean, you've ticked off a big part, right? Like, you can look at the law, you can understand the law, but like me, I'm starting at ground zero. Were there a lot of folks? I can't imagine there were a lot of folks in law school that were focusing on IT things.
So in my undergraduate class, there was an IT law module on that.
Really?
And I think there were probably 20 or so of us studying that. How many then went on to do IT or tech law? I don't know.
Right.
It's a lot of people will try and advise on technology related stuff because there are so many organizations looking for that kind of work. But proper geeky, actually interested in the technology, certainly in England and Wales, there's a much smaller number. I'm definitely not unique, but it is a smaller number of lawyers doing it.
And it's something that it seems like we need more and more and more of, because again, it's growing. And I think this is why I'm so excited to have you. Now, I'm in America, and I'm not expecting you to know the law, but there are significant amounts of people that want to own their data, that want to host it. And now we're getting into Because I literally talked to someone last week about GDPR, right? I'm like, I'm in America. And they're like, no, you need to worry about GDPR as well because it's a website. They will just, block you out. And I think that your field, if, it seems to have a trajectory potentially with the Fediverse and with technology of more folks wanting to invest in themselves and take care of themselves. So do you agree with that? But also, like, what kind of clients do you normally talk to?
I mean, I think you're right that, of course, we always need more lawyers. You can't have a party without more lawyers. So, yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know if I said that, but yeah.
That's what I heard. That's what came across. There
Yeah.
should be more lawyers.
I think every lawyer hears that, right?
Far be it from a lawyer to twist your words. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. And I mean, to your second point, people should worry about the GDPR. It may be worthwhile considering the GDPR, and I say this as someone who spends a lot of my time working with data protection stuff. There's very little to worry about with the GDPR. There's some stuff to think through. There's some stuff to do. But on the whole, for a lot of organizations, it's pretty straightforward. What doesn't help is it's about that thick. But fortunately, there's loads of great free guidance and resources and tools out there. So I can understand why people worry. I point an awful lot of people to free resources and say, look, not really sure you need a lawyer on this. Why don't you have a look on the UK Information Commissioner's website? There's a tool on there for how to write a privacy notice. It actually generates a privacy notice for you that will be good for the purposes of the UK GDPR. And it may be that other data protection supervisory authorities have something similar for the EU GDPR. They're similar, they're not quite the same. But yeah, there's some useful free stuff out there. So sure, I agree, absolutely, you're spot on, we need more lawyers. But at the same time, maybe people don't need to worry about stuff. There are some good free resources out there. But then you talked about sort of self-hosting, the Fediverse, how it all fits together. I spend a lot of so I self-host not absolutely everything. Our accountancy package, for example, is the one the accountants wanted us to use, and that runs on third-party SaaS. But everything else we use as a business, everything is self-hosted. I think, like you, for your Fireside Fedi, we're talking now on Jitsi. I run an instance of Jitsi. I host our mail server. I run our Fedi instance. I run my personal Fedi instance. All of that is self-hosted. And yeah, there are increasingly more legal bits and pieces to do around that. But for now, my view is still very much, this is doable and this is manageable, rather than these are reasons why you shouldn't self-host. There are plenty potentially of good reasons why you shouldn't self-host and why you should trust an expert or someone else to do it, or someone who's got the time, the skills, whatever it is. But if someone made the decision that that's what they wanted to do, I'm not sure that the law would be an impediment generally.
And so why do you feel that you self-host? Just because you find it fun? Is it a privacy issue? Is it, do you feel that you can connect with clients? Or is it kind of all the above?
I think it's a mix of everything. That, for me, one of the things that really got me interested in internet and telecoms and computery type issues, it was the debates around copyleft licenses. It was the debates about freedom and the increasing sort of corporatization of the internet and of the web. Corridor uses a slightly different term for it that I'm personally not hugely in love with, but making things worse, corporates making things worse. And for me, so everything I do is run on Linux. I use Linux as a desktop computer, and I'm very happy doing that. And I'm very comfortable sysadmining my own stuff. So I've run Linux since the early 2000s. I started when I was at uni, and I started self-hosting stuff back then. And so it probably never crossed my mind to do anything other than that. And yeah, sure, there are days when I think, oh, it would be nice if I had someone else to do this rather than me. But on the whole, I really don't mind it. I've automated as much as I can. I've scripted as much as I can. I monitor as much as I can and keep an eye on things. And yeah, it's been, so far, a pretty smooth ride.
So if a Who do you normally serve for your law firm? Is it I can't imagine it's self-hosters that all of a sudden run into GDPR. You said that's not really an issue. Is it mom and pop
So
shops or?
a whole range from massive multinational
Yeah, you can't really
organizations
say, right?
through to individuals. And I mean, over the last
Right.
5 or 6 months, slightly lose track of time, but basically since the start of the calendar year, the UK's been going through the Online Safety Act, and there's been a lot of rhetoric around
Oh,
that, what people need to do. And I have spent a lot of my time this year working with people who are self-hosting, trying to help them find a way to do what they need to do to a standard that they're comfortable with the risks that they're willing to take on, while
yeah,
enabling them to continue to run whatever services it is. And those often are individuals. And I mean, that's effectively work that I've done in my free time. I've never charged anybody for that, and I've no particular plans on doing so. It's
wow,
I would like to see people being able to host their own Fedi services. I'd like to see people being able to run their own personal blogs or whatever it might be. And yeah, part of giving back for me this year at least has been, how can I help them do that?
that's awesome. And I mean, a lot of lawyers, at least in the U.S., they have to do so many hours of pro bono work. I don't think it sounds like you really don't have to worry about that because you've automatically baked that in. This is something you enjoy doing. You like the legal aspects, you like the tech aspects. So this is just, at least for me, this stuff is just fun, right? Not the
Yeah.
lawyer aspect, but
And I think to a sense, certainly for some of the Online Safety Act stuff, I'd rather that I didn't have to do it. I'd rather that the law hadn't been crafted in that way. But right now, here is where we are. And sure, I don't have a regulatory requirement to do pro bono. And I don't do it to tick a box or to prove to someone else what I'm doing. But
right,
there's a need out there. There's a need that I can address. There's a need that I can address while doing work to bring in money, while also doing this as well. So the Fedi's been really good for me in that kind of way. People pop up with interesting questions, and I'll often stop and have a chat with someone. And quite a lot of time, the answer is, I don't think you really need legal advice on this. Certainly, you don't need to pay me for legal advice. Have you thought about looking at these resources, or have you looked at a particular regulator's website? A bit like I was saying for the GDPR, trying to
right.
point people in the right direction, demystifying, perhaps, if that's way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. But and it not but have you ever had it where someone asked you a question like, I don't know, and you go and look it up, and then you can actually take that to your paying customers? Like being in that kind of environment, having, at least for me, whenever I've taught newer folks to IT, they ask questions that are very unique and things that we would never think of because, like, oh, well, that's just obvious. It's like none of it is obvious until you go look it up. So have you ever had that? Because that, that in itself is you being on the Fediverse is paying back you being able to make a living.
So if I split your question up then, lawyer
Yeah.
style, has anyone ever asked me a question where I didn't immediately know the answer? Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And very rarely is there one true answer. Actually, and it's a sort of a standing joke. You ask 3 lawyers a question, you get 4 different answers and 5 bills. But the truth is, it depends on all number of things as to what the answer
Yeah.
might be. But
Yeah.
often I get questions and I think, oh, never thought of that before. I will go away and have a think. And the answer may not be in the law books, and it may not be in the RFCs or the standards or whatever it might be. It may be a case of sitting back and thinking, okay, how does all this jigsaw fit together for those
Yeah.
particular set of facts? So first question, yes, all the time. Second question, what do I do with that knowledge? I'm probably a terrible businessman because I'll probably blog about it. I never do it in a way that identifies the client unless they're happy with it. But so for years, if I did some work and I thought, oh, there's an interesting novel point there, it might come up again, I used to put it on a wiki that I run, DocuWiki, again, self-hosted, to which only I had access. And I just got to increasingly thinking, why? Why am I doing that? I'm I'm not massively worried about other people reading what I've written and either not coming to me for advice or competitors doing it. There's plenty of work to go around, and I'd rather people were able to help themselves and not incur legal bills when they can. So
Right.
I tend to write blog posts about it, and some of the blog posts are long and some of the blog posts are short, and very occasionally they're interesting, but they're nearly all, ooh, there was an interesting thing cropped up. I've thought about it. Why don't I write some thoughts? And I just moved from keeping it in that private repository into, well, I may as well blog publicly about it then.
No, but I think that's what folks that have seen the advent of the internet, that's what we're used to. Information was shared freely. We were all happy to give it, and then things are starting to get locked down, right? And it's like, now we need to monetize every answer. How do we do that? Oh, well, Stack Overflow has ads, right? And it's like, I'm tired of that. Let's get back to that, in my opinion. And I think that's amazing. And I 100% agree with you. We don't need to lock this information behind silos. There's more than enough that we can afford to work, and it's not giving away the answer. Even if the answer is right there, it's literally the question you have. The internet is so pervasive. We still need experts to see, does it apply to my situation? And how do I even find something like that? Right. So,
And if someone can read a blog post and say, that's good enough for me, I'll go from it, perfect. I'm happy with that. But in terms of paywalls and things, I'm lucky. I'm in a really privileged position where I can write that blog, and I can write it on sort of work time. I work for myself, but write it on work time and publish it. And increasingly you see people who say, well, actually, if I'm going to spend my time and my effort writing something, even putting it on my own blog, I'd like to seek some sort of compensation for doing that. I need to feel that I'm rewarded for my time, or I just need to eat. I need to put food on the table. And if I'm spending time blogging, maybe people should pay for that. So individuals running their own blogs and putting them behind a paywall or seeking donations or something, I'm completely cool with that. I think that is a recognition of the challenging society we're in. I know we said we wouldn't do politics, but if we had universal basic income or something, maybe things would look a whole heap better. But for now, in the UK at least, we don't. So yeah, people who write and who want to charge for their writing, great. Yes. I'm all for that. I'm lucky that I can write that blog post, upload it onto a box in the garage, and it's available on the internet for free. There's a degree of privilege that lets me do that.
I 100%. I totally agree with that. I don't have any problem with you making a living through you writing. The issues that I come into is all of these tech companies are now platforms that take no responsibility, take 50% of your cut, and change the rules every other day. Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm having an issue with. And I think that we have an opportunity to pull that power back, assuming folks are interested in doing that. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. So for me, I'm all in favor of that. Now, I don't think that self-hosting is for everyone. I'm far more interested, I think, for the broader population. I'm talking to this. I follow a whole load of people on the Fediverse who are way, way technically more adept than I am, who've got a load more experience than I do. And my personal take, I think, again, it's a question of privilege. Very lucky to be able to self-host stuff. Yes. I've got IP addresses. I've got a stable electricity supply. I can afford servers. I can afford to spend time doing this. I'm not running between 3 or 4 jobs trying to make make ends meet, that kind of thing. But cooperatives and small groups and others running smaller infrastructure without some of that corporate overhead and without some of the corporate nonsense that goes with it, yeah, I'm there for that.
And it seems to never end, right? With corporations, they can provide you the most amazing service. They can give you some things, but at the end, they always have to make more and more and more. There was a report out, I think it was early to mid 2000s in the US, where like cable companies were making 95%, so 95 cents on the dollar for every just internet hookup. That's insane turnaround, and yet we don't, in the US at least, we don't really have much competition. So that's why I'm all for nonprofits as well, or foundations or something. Like my idea, and I 100% agree with you. There are people that don't have the time, don't have the energy, don't have the money, don't have the knowledge to do this, but they still should have the opportunity to not be in those kinds of silos, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And And I don't know if you've ever been on the web recently without an ad blocker in place.
Never. Nope.
And I, so I did it the other day, and you look and you think, how on earth have we got to here? How do people use this? And again, okay, great. I know to put an ad blocker in place. I know to use Pi-hole on the network level, and I can do those things.
Yep.
But the people we're really penalizing are the people who don't have that knowledge or time. And
Oh,
that's just horrible, because without those things, the web's a pretty horrible experience.
oh yeah.
I mean, I probably take it to extremes that I still use a terminal browser an awful lot, links or e-links, browse websites in a terminal. How increasingly it works less well as people make more and more dependencies on JavaScript and things. But there's something about plain text on a black background where I can scroll through with the keyboard, read things, move around. That's still really, it's why I really like RSS, really simple syndication as well. I read so much stuff. I don't tend to read many corporate or big organization websites, but I've got a whole load of people's personal blogs in my RSS reader. And if I want something to read, that is what I open. And you get interesting, fun, relevant stuff to me, written by people whom I actually want to read what they've done, and typically without any of that annoyance behind it. So some of those old technologies, still
And
prominent in my usage.
It's great you mentioned RSS, because we've seen a resurgence with RSS as people tend to move away. You were talking about the current state of the internet, though, with the ads. And like, I remember, again, early internet where people were figuring out, how do we monetize this? And I think anyone our age remembers all of the title bars across the browser. And then you'll go over to a parent's or an older friend's house, and they have like 60 of those, and like their web browsers down here, where people have found that, like, well, people are okay with ads, but we've not gotten to the point. I think for us, we've gotten to the point where it's like, no, I'm not doing that paywall. No, I'm not going to your site, because it's literally one sentence ad, and it makes me sick to my stomach. But things like RSS, not just because of the Fediverse, I feel like people have found it again and are like, oh, I don't have to worry about that shit.
I'd be interested to see how much it continues to grow, whether it is mostly already slightly geeky inclined people who are now using RSS more, or whether there really is that broader uptake of it. But for me,
that's fair.
Sure, I love reading books and big fan of e-readers. My second biggest source of stuff to read these days is people's personal blogs and things via RSS. And I love that.
And for those that don't know, RSS is a way to have just like a reader, and you connect in to, let's say, I have NPR, right? So I don't have to go to NPR's. It's essentially like your newspaper. If anyone remembers newspapers, you just get the information straight to your RSS feeder. And the amazing thing, which blew my mind when I found the Fediverse, which I think we all kind of find Mastodon at first, is pretty much every technology in the Fediverse supports RSS. So you never even have to go to their website. Like, if you want to follow Neil, you can have an RSS reader and just follow Neil. Like, that is amazing to me.
Recommend it. I mean, technically, yeah, you could. But that seems like the kind of thing that should have a public health warning flashing up on the screen if you want to do that.
I'll add it in post.
That people follow me, because you're right. I post about tech stuff, legal stuff, and occasionally a bad joke. Occasionally, multiple times a day. They're very similar, but yeah. I mean, I don't know how long you've been using the Fediverse, but I started back in the days when it was sort of Diaspora was starting out, and I didn't get very far with that. And then I tried Mastodon some years later and ran it for a bit, and it was okay. But it was probably 7 and a bit years ago when I really started getting stuck into Mastodon and the Fediverse more broadly. And yeah, I'm still here and I love it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I was, so again, I love it so much. I'm going way outside my comfort zone and trying to start a business, right? And when I've been telling people, like, because when you set up a business, you have to tell them what kind of business it is. And folks are like, okay, well, what do you do? And you try to explain it, and everyone's like, I don't get it, but that sounds amazing. And I was like, Yeah, imagine having your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever that isn't owned by anyone but you, and you don't have to worry about all their bullshit, essentially. And everyone seems very positive and receptive. We'll see what it comes down to, implementation and getting on people on board if they're actually interested. But it seems like it's time for this kind of change and this kind of pivot.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful.
absolutely. And there's so many wonderful. So I was on Twitter for a long time. I used to enjoy that, and then things started going wrong and wrong and more wrong and worse. And yeah, for me, there are just so many interesting people on the Fediverse, and so much kindness. That I think is so. I host my own instance, so I only see content from people that I follow or stuff that they boost. So
Yes.
it is more limited than if you're on a big instance and you've got a load of stuff. But by doing that and then using the filtering tools to filter out stuff that just isn't for me, great if it's for someone else, that's not a problem. But move it to one side for me, it makes for a really enjoyable experience.
But I think you hit the nail on the head there, though, is it's not for me. And you don't have to worry about someone else deciding, oh, well, maybe it is for you. Let's put that back in your thing. You're like, no, that's not for me. And I feel like, and I could be wrong here, but I've been thinking a lot about, there have been people that I've seen that, let's just say they're very being not nice. And I kind of told them, like, hey, we want to all be nice. We all want to, try and have an actual conversation. And just to give you a heads up, I see you're on your own instance. Like, yes, if someone reports you, it goes to you. But it also goes to other instance admins. And if you are not playing nice, they'll just block you. And then your toys, you can't take them to anyone else's house. Now, whether it plays out like that, I guess we'll see.
And it obviously means putting quite a load on moderators and admins.
It does, yeah.
Or you run your own instance, then that load falls on you. And again, I say this as a middle-aged, cis-het, white, IT literate chap. I don't see an awful lot of some of the more horrible stuff that definitely goes on. People don't direct it at me, or it's blocked out with block lists that I've got in. So I'm very lucky from that. I imagine that the flip side of anyone being able to host, anyone being able to interact and whatever is, it's not just those who are kind and open and generous and us to that. There's a whole other world as well. And looking at the safety of the more vulnerable users within the Fediverse and things, absolutely vital.
Yes.
So completely agree with you.
I've recently heard that too. Like and that's something we never think about, right? Like our perception of things will be completely different versus someone that, is a different gender, is a different skin color. Like, and that doesn't have to be in a negative way, I'm saying, but again, when I really believe that everyone has something unique. Your experience defines you. And, I could have literally someone else on tomorrow that has had a similar life and viewed it completely differently just because of one little change of their life. And that's important, understanding everyone's position, right? And I don't know.
Yes. And so for me, I mean, I probably spend more time in the Fediverse than I should. And maybe it's a side effect of being there and just generally having a chance to talk with so many amazing people. You get that sort of crossover between people you met online, who then sort of come into your offline existence as well, and people you met offline who then bump into on the Fediverse and things. I got this absolutely wonderful thing. I showed you. Came through the post recently, and I showed it was. Look at this. It's from wonderful Fedi artist Welsh Pixie. They did the artwork, and somebody sent it to me, and I just thought this is absolutely amazing. Quite lovely.
For our audio listeners, do you want to read that out and explain it?
It's a bit difficult because I've got it pointed at the camera, so I can't actually see it. So do you want to read it out?
So it's a beautiful. It looks like handwritten calligraphy. It says, "Just don any disguise with glasses to become Neil Green, anonymous internet hero."
And somebody took the time to commission Welsh Pixie to do that and then get
That's
it posted
beautiful.
to me.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
Um,
And this,
it was,
and well, you're Neil's brother. You're Neil's twin brother, right?
no, I am Neil Green, anonymous internet hero.
Again, for those on the audio version, Neil
Yeah.
has
And it was just that
glasses
kind
and
of wonderful silliness
yes,
that
I
I
love it.
absolutely loved for doing that. Now, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but yeah. So yeah, it was, and it made me smile so much. I mean, for the last 2 or 3 years, maybe longer. As a business, we've been doing Christmas cards. Now, honestly, there's probably not a huge amount of point in doing Christmas cards, but I've enjoyed it. And for the last couple of years, another fantastic Fedi artist, Jenny Gillenblad, she's been doing quite amazing artwork. So for the last couple of years, I've commissioned Jen to do some artwork. So I don't know if you saw it, and then put a form out there hosted by self-hosted instance of Libera Forms this year. Absolutely fantastic. You know, if you know me on the Fediverse, or if you don't, but you'd like a Christmas card from a random English Fedizen lawyer, just fill in your details and I'll write and send you a Christmas card or a holiday card or whatever message you want written inside, basically.
Be careful, Neil. You're going to get stuck with like 10,000 different ones. Oh my God, that's beautiful.
So it's absolutely stunning, wonderful cyberpunky, geeky stuff that you really couldn't imagine something more cyberpunky than that, could you? It was just superb. And last year, yeah, I think it was 250-ish people came and asked for that. All Fedizens, all Fedizens and one Fedizen's dog. I sent a holiday card to a dog. I hope it tasted okay for them. It was just that random community, online, offline mix that, yeah, it appeals to me.
So, and again, to let our audio folks know, Neil held up his Christmas card and it was beautiful. I don't know if you've tooted about it, but it was a very cyberpunk Christmas that is very beautiful art style. And it said Merry Encryptmas. And then he had on some flashing green glasses. And but I think this actually leads into a great topic, which you just said on your Mastodon. Is it yesterday? Picture may say 1,000 words, but a few well-chosen words of alt text can make that picture accessible to a broader community. And again, I think that this is an opportunity for us where I don't want AI to do alt text because that makes it easy for people. We need to connect with people, and you don't have to do alt text. That's fine. Don't do alt text. But no, there are a lot of people that you are not engaging with, you cannot interact with because they have no idea what you're doing or trying to say. And I think that as a good community member, I don't post a lot of pictures. I often forget, but I try to when someone kind of posts me, it's like, hey, alt text, like, of course. It makes a difference to those people. We have someone in our community, he's blind, and he'll ask like, hey, can you do this? Like, oh yeah, absolutely, sorry. And like, it's just being nice, right? And something as simple as that, just explaining to people what you're seeing can literally be life-changing for someone.
Absolutely. And for those who can do alt text, and there are plenty of good reasons why someone may not be able to do alt text, either temporarily, I don't know, maybe they're feeding a child or something, they've taken a photo, but they can't use the phone with one hand, or they don't have the spoons, or whatever reason they can't do the alt text. Absolutely. And I wouldn't want to overlook those in a conversation saying, yeah, alt text is good. If you haven't done it, that's bad. There may be really justified reasons why they're not able to do it, and why you can use different hashtags or follow accounts that will try and do it. So I'm probably a bit of a naysayer when it comes to AI. I take that sort of moderate position of, not really convinced at all yet. I'm not an extreme, AI all the way, or an extreme burn down all the AI companies. I'm in that moderate, unconvinced position.
It's a tool.
I can't do AI. Sorry, I can't do alt text. I just don't have the spoons to do it, but I still want to post that.
Yes.
them using AI to do it, is that better than there being nothing there at all? I genuinely don't know whether then the receiver,
Right.
the person who used the image, could use AI themselves, whether it's better it's done once than multiple times. I don't
That's a
know.
fair
So I'm
point
not sure I
too.
shut the door to it. For me, I'm in a position where I can take that time to describe the image, where I do have the mental
Yeah.
capacity, not exhaustion, whatever it is, to do it. I'd rather write the alt text myself.
Yes. Yeah, and I agree. I'm actually not a never AIer, but I'm definitely not an always AIer. Like, it is a tool. Use the hammer when the hammer suits. Don't let some Silicon person Valley tell you the hammer works in every single situation. It's like, no,
Yeah,
no.
absolutely. When you look at sort of bug reports for open source free software projects and how the workload's being increased, the extra resource being put on the environmental impact, the resource impact on servers of AI crawlers scraping everything. Again, so far, I've been lucky. Not even AI scrapers want to read my blog. So that hasn't been a huge issue. But for some people, yeah, it's been a massive increase in resource. I'll be interested to see to what end and whether it's genuinely good for humanity as opposed to good for a very few people or their corporate interests.
Yes, I think that's a great way to say
God, this
it.
has gone deeper than I was expecting. I was anticipating doing a few bad jokes, wearing a couple of pairs of novelty glasses, and yeah, but yeah, I mean, the Luddites had a point, didn't they? Technology for the betterment of humans rather than the enrichment of
Yes.
corporate interests or mill owners.
Oh yeah. No, and I'm the type of, classic hacker that believes that all knowledge should be free, all information that should be free. Not completely to the sense of some where it's like government systems need to be completely unlocked. Like, not quite there. But this kind of thing that has been locked down from us, that has been advertised from us, like advertised away, and like YouTube, like I just want to watch how to fix, my drain. I don't want to watch 15 minutes of ads to get to the point where I can fix my drain.
Yeah.
And we've had this tool that has been so absolutely amazing in basic home things like that. And it's been empowering and uplifting because there could be that single mom that's like, I can't afford to hire a plumber to fix my toilet. YouTube. I mean, I've been there where my heat went out in the middle of winter, and my wife and I, we had just bought the house that we were in. We had just started our careers. We didn't have a lot of money. I'm like, let me just see if I can YouTube. And sure enough, it was one little part that cost like $15. And
yeah, so having stuff that can be readily repaired,
yes,
okay,
that
some
as
stuff
well.
perhaps safer to repair than another depending on skill level, but having stuff that's capable, ready for repair, absolutely. I'm going through an interesting spate at the moment of buying broken e-readers on eBay, and stuff that people say, oh, doesn't work anymore. Well, probably just needs a software update pushing onto it, or needs the battery disconnecting or reconnecting, or I changed our audio system a while back. I wanted in-room audio, but done, again, as much free and open source as I could. And do you remember the squeeze box radios from 20, 25 years ago? Proper multi-room stuff from Logitech. And there are loads of those going where people go, well, actually Logitech's discontinued the service that you need to connect to that they ran, so can't use this box anymore. Well, fortunately, there is a free software implementation of their server. And if you configure it the right way, which isn't too tricky for me at least, you plug that box into it and it gets a firmware update that lets you use it again. Our house is now full of secondhand, mostly pretty good condition, old streaming devices that still work perfectly. So yeah, I'm very much one of those. I won't buy new unless it's unavoidable. I'd much rather buy secondhand and do something to it, fix it, put a new solid state drive into it, upgrade the RAM, whatever, and give it another working life.
Yeah. No, I never did that. I always bought new. And the last couple of years, cell phones, I'm not
Yeah.
paying $1,000 for a phone, so I'll go and buy a refurb for $100 or $200. It works fine. There's nothing wrong with these things. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. Like these, they don't really wear out. I mean, yes, you can have ICs that go bad, and there's a many a YouTube channel on how to fix these things now too, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But so
We
much
have
of this technology that doesn't work is completely designed obsolescence. A company doesn't want to support it anymore, or, well, we need you to get up to the next version so we can charge you for the features we once gave you. And this is not the way, like, to be
absolutely.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a wonderful house clearance place not far from where we are here, and every so often I like to go in and have a poke around. And they had a fantastic selection of books. And one of the books I got recently was from late 80s, early 90s, I would have thought, How to Fix Anything at Home kind of book. And it's 2 inches thick. And sure, some stuff has changed and some safety standards will have moved on and things, but an awful lot is pretty similar to look at it and think, okay, I understand how this appliance works, or I understand how I might go and do that. And now for jobs, if I'm not sure how I'd approach it, my first port of call isn't YouTube or isn't even the web. It's to look in that book and think, oh, okay, I've got an offline version here that has a lot of that useful information, and there are no ads in it. There's no one trying to sell me something or slip in a product recommendation. It's just a book, and it was 50 pence. It was, I mean, if nothing else, you can use it to hit the broken appliance and try and fix it, and you've still got your money's worth.
So, but do you think that there's a place still on the internet where you could, like, again, if you could get folks like on PeerTube or something, would you be more incentivized to look up something on a PeerTube when you know that there's a large maker community or something, or are you still going to that book? The reason I ask is I made a little silly tagline on PyFed called, and I made a video on it, don't search it, Fediverse it, meaning that we should be investing back into this thing that is completely community owned, completely for the benefit of us. And we want to make that knowledge base as wide as possible. So folks that might not have that 50-cent book, that don't even know that that 50-cent book can exist, and they could still find it without all the BS that big tech has forced on us.
So you're the first person I've heard to use Fediverse as a verb.
Yes!
I'm going to reserve my judgment on that, but moving on to the bigger point that you're making, would I be more inclined to look at the book or look at a Fedi instance? I don't know, but what I completely support is a different environment where people can get that information and can get it from experts or people who've just solved the same problem. If you don't read my work blog, but may read my personal blog, a lot of that is, and here's how Neil solved this particular problem. I came across this issue and here's how I fixed it.
Yes.
Now, the audience for that isn't anyone else. The audience for that is future me, for when I come across that problem again and I think, wonder how I solved that. And I search and the first answer is me telling me how I solved my problem. That's happened too many times. So, yeah, expanding that out, whether it's video, I prefer text, but I get why people like videos. Whatever it is, building, sharing that community of knowledge. Absolutely.
I like 10 years ago when I started my career, one of the first things that the IT group I joined said is like, okay, you're going to be responsible for our knowledge base. It's like, okay, great. That's awesome, because I'm the same way. I know I'm going to forget how to do it. It is completely a selfish reason. And if anyone else gets, some kind of advantage out of it, that's gravy. That's right there with you. Literally right before the show, I've been trying to figure out why I can't get PeerTube to pull in a publicly hosted index. And I finally, thanks to help with the GitHub, found where the logs were, and I was able to go through them. And I had posted on PyFed, like, I can't get this working a couple days ago. And I went back and I put the log location, because I know I'm going to need the log location again in the future. And I put the specific error message that I was hitting. And sure enough, it was a bug in how they suggested you had to lay out the thing, right? But that's, as you said, I'm doing it for me because I know I'm going to have some kind of issue in the future, and at least I could go back to that. But the massive benefit is if one person, just one, finds it useful, like, that's amazing to me.
It is amazing, and I think increasingly the challenge will be how do they find that one useful piece of information amongst a
That's the hard part.
sea of automatically generated garbage designed to draw search traffic to you.
Yes.
And even if they do find my blog, how do they get comfortable that actually I do know what I'm talking about or not? How do they make that decision as to whether to trust that information?
Yeah.
And I'm just minded that, certainly when I was going through secondary school and through university, the edict was always, you can't trust Wikipedia. It's written by other people. And now increasingly it's, oh, you can't trust any of these websites. It's probably written by a computer. Trust Wikipedia because it's written by other people. And how you trust stuff and how you build that trust, that's interesting.
Well, and when I was in college, the teachers were the same way. You can't quote Wikipedia. And then someone
Yes.
else was like, yeah, you're right. You can't quote Wikipedia, but you can go to Wikipedia, find the references and sources section and quote that. The problem that I think people are hitting with AI is even when, like lawyers, there have been a couple of cases in the US already where a lawyer references a prior case that doesn't exist.
Almost weekly here, you see reports in the
Is
legal
it?
press about someone with a hallucinated case citation or something, and that's sloppy.
I hate the term hallucination because we're giving it's anthropomorphic. It's not a hallucination in my opinion. It's just wrong.
It's
Like
it's made up.
it's made up.
It's autocorrect on steroids kind of thing for doing
Yeah.
that. So yes, hallucination probably the common parlance for it, but what you're putting in is simply
Yes.
made up information. It's a fiction generator.
Right. And coming back to how do you find this stuff? I've recently been questioning this as well as how do we find Fediverse related stuff again, because I want to dog food this. I want to, if I can't find the answer, put the answer that I'm looking for in there. And I've come to find out. So I run CirxNG or CirxNG, however you pronounce it. I don't know if you know that
I know
one.
it. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I know it.
Right, yeah. For those that don't know, it's a self-hosted search engine. It's not really a search engine. You are leveraging you're leveraging all the big search engine guys behind. Besides the ads, in my opinion, it has returned more consistently good results than any other engine at this point. But I found out last week that it also has bangs for specifically searching the Fediverse, specifically searching Lemmy, specifically searching Mastodon. Someone also told me that Kagi, the Kagi paid search engine, they're doing that as well. So it seems like we're getting some traction there. It doesn't change the fact that like amongst the Fediverse, that's a huge amount of information, right? So still finding it's going to be tricky.
And not everyone wants their posts indexed.
Yes, that is an excellent point. A lot of people choose not to, which is their right, which is totally fine. But yeah.
But when it comes to bangs, so I use, if I'm using a graphical browser, I use Firefox. And I use search shortcuts all the time. So rather than searching on DuckDuckGo or wherever, if I think what I want to search is Wikipedia, I do @wiki space and then type whatever it is I want to do. And it searches using Wikipedia's search engine. And that's dead easy to set up within each instance of your browser.
But, relatively.
Yeah. I suppose a lot of what I say is, oh, that's dead easy, as I say that. I'm running this on Linux-related laptop, and it probably didn't take any config editing or terminal stuff to do it. So it is easy.
One of the biggest things I had to work that I had to realize at Red Hat is there's so much amazing intellect and knowledge there that everyone falls into that. Like, I don't know how to do X, and you're asking your mentor, like, oh, that's easy. So what I started telling newer folks is, you're going to hear that's easy a lot. That's because they know how to do it. You're starting from scratch. Do not internalize that. Work through the problem. When you hear that's easy, that's because that's easy for them because they've been there a million times. You still need to walk that path, but you can get there if you want.
That is completely fair. And yes, very valid correction. Thank you. And for me, that's why I've then done it. I then blog it so that when I forget how easy it is, I can go and find it myself and learn from myself for doing that.
And having a community too, like none of this would be possible without the folks in my community. Like I trip over things constantly, and just having multiple people that look at the issue in multiple different ways, we can isolate down to the problem. So again, I feel like what we've lost in these big tech things is that kind of community. Like, oh, I might not know, but I know Neil has a blog on that. Let's go look.
Yeah, humanity is a shared experience.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
And in saying that, I haven't had to use Fediverse as a verb.
You know, I love them. Like, I crack myself up with some of these things because, like, they're so cheesy and stupid, and yet it gets a reaction like that, right? So you're gonna remember because you're like, I want to throw up a bit because it is.
Oh, I'm going to remember.
And that's the point, right? Is like just that little tick in the back of your mind because I'm taking that like the commercials that we've put up for the last 30, 40 years and that we all are just like, that is so dumb. And I'm just like, I'm taking that. I'm using that as my own. I'm going to make the dumbest sayings.
You remembered it. Yes.
Yeah, right. So one of the questions that your audience asked right before this, which I absolutely love, we don't get a lot of audience questions, was from Gideon, who asked, we're getting a point where most of the commons has now been on the internet for most of their lives. We're still seeing unworkable and idiotic tech legislation produced by HMG and the civil service. How can we most effectively oppose the willfully foolish bits of Westminster? Now, I'm assuming
there's some translation perhaps to be done.
Yes, please go ahead.
So the gist of the question is essentially our elected officials, our members of parliament, and the broader staff that support them. They're not new to the internet or new to computers. They've grown up alongside them. How come we often get legislation which, in the questioner's view, is sort of often deficient from a technology point of view?
Yes.
And I mean, that's at least an essay, probably a book, and
we could go on for hours on that conversation.
Yes. The legislation, the process of who we elect and how we elect people comes into it, what it needs to both become a member of parliament and to remain an elected member of parliament. And for a lot of things, people don't tend to prioritize voting on technology related topics. So you may not get MPs unless they have a passing interest in it themselves who are really focused on tech stuff. I don't know to how many of the electorate those are key issues. And when things get into Parliament, certainly in the UK and probably elsewhere, the parliamentary process of lawmaking, it's not like writing a computer program where you can try it and then debug it, compile it, see whether it compiles or not, try it again or whatever. Yeah. It is a messy process with hundreds of amendments flying around and people wanting their say and different lobbyist groups wanting their input in it
and
as well.
Unintended consequences, right? Like you put a law in and you think is going to be great for everyone. The biggest one that I always think of is why is the CEO, and maybe this is hearsay, but why in the US is the CEO pay exploded over the last 20 to 30 years? And someone, and I don't remember who, pointed it down to the Democrats pushing through a law in the 70s or 80s and saying every CEO has to publicly announce their pay, thinking that would keep them in check to worker pay. But what that did is, I'm a CEO, you're a CEO, you're getting paid more than me. We're doing the same thing. No. I want more.
Transparency, yes. Unintended consequences not always going the way that it could. I don't think anyone sets out to intentionally design legislation that is technically deficient. I can quite understand that there will be situations where people completely overlook them. And I can understand that there will be situations where people make policy-related decisions that people, particularly in the technical community, either think are nonsensical or just will never work or do things like that. I don't think people are, on the whole, setting out to make bad technology decisions, maybe in some corner cases.
Yes.
But I can also understand the frustration that comes through from the question of saying, here we are again. How come nobody thought about that?
And it's yeah. And I mean, being in law and in IT, you see every single tiny nuance, right? Like there have been numerous times where I've been on a call and the decision to restart an application was made. And then we had another 2-hour conversation before we actually did it because no one knows all of this stuff. It's so complex and it's so important. If you restart it and something doesn't come up, how the hell do we restart that? Who do we get? And like no one, yeah, I don't think it is as black and white as that either. But like the Child Safety Act, I don't know that where you're at. You obviously know it massively better being a lawyer, but I see a lot of those kinds of things that, the media tells us that is just a political divide, that they want to do it this way, but really they want to shut something down. And it's such a nuanced question that I don't think there is one answer. But my concern is making law-abiding citizens now criminals, right? So like there's constantly conversation about encryption going away. We all know you cannot put a backdoor in encryption. It doesn't exist. Like someone will get in. We have plenty of examples over the last 30 years of encrypted or secure things that, are not. So what do you feel like that? And often it even if you can abide by it, it pushes you out of it and all of the people that are not going to follow it anyway further into that periphery. Do you agree with those things? Where do you see challenges like that?
Again, there's a book's worth of stuff in those questions covering a whole range of themes.
Just give me an answer, yes or no. Jeez, these lawyers, I'll tell you.
Online Safety Act.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the thinking behind it is sound. I think some of the principles, the idea of helping keep children safe online and putting some of the responsibility on large platform providers, as well perhaps as also on parents, I think that makes a lot of sense. Exactly how the OSA, the Online Safety Act, goes about it, some of the claims of territorial or extraterritorial effect, I'm less enamored by, and the absence of provisions for the seeming failure to recognize self-hosting or small groups running inherently low-risk services for themselves.
Yes.
That, I think, is a real shame. It could be something that is addressable, if there are people who are willing to listen and sort of legislate on that basis.
Mm-hmm.
But there are good things in there, as well as things that I think are omissions or oversights or problems with it. So I'm certainly not going to come out and say, no, that's all bad. And in terms of encryption, there was a wonderful cartoon from years and years ago, and there's a US president standing there with a box at a counter, and it says control of internet speech on it. And the person serving behind the counter has 2 rolls of paper on the wall, and one says terrorism and one says child safety, and sort of the tagline is, so how would Sir like this wrapped? The idea that you can dress up any measure as either pro-safety, anti-terrorism, or pro-child protection, whatever it might be, that is as old as the hills. And it always makes me smile when I think it was an Australian minister who'd said, the law of mathematics is all well and good, but down here it's the law of Australia that matters. And I think that's a brave position to take. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Australian. And yeah, I agree with you. To have encryption with a backdoor in it that is only used by the good guys, whoever those good guys might be, to me, that seems incompatible. How do states approach issues of national security, of law enforcement assistance, of protecting citizens? That's a complicated discussion. And a whole lot of that discussion has simply been, well, nerds, nerd harder. You must come up with a technical solution. And sometimes the answer may simply be, maybe you need to police harder. You may not always have the capabilities that you have today. You may not be able to do everything that you could do on an unencrypted web before TLS and Let's Encrypt and other things became so commonplace. But yeah, maybe it's not nerd hard, and maybe you may need to police harder too.
But I think that I think that is an amazing conversation point in what we're seeing in the US, what we're seeing with big tech, is they literally think they can nerd harder out of all of these problems. Like, I'm so smart, I could figure out anything. It's like, it doesn't have to do with smart. It has to do with how complex these things are. Oh, well, then I can make them less complex. You have to understand them, which takes years before you can even begin to start making it less complex. But no, we're going to do it in 6 months. Like,
And there are, as always, there's balance here that,
yes.
Someone can point to a terrible system that they've made and say, well, I don't know how to make it any better because it's too complicated. Well, that sounds like a you problem in some respects. But at the same time, saying, no, I can't solve fundamental societal problems, or I can't solve insurmountable problems with mathematics just by staring at the page longer and harder. And we may need to distinguish those two, and probably various other camps along the way, from saying, yeah, maybe there is something that organizations can do. Maybe there are some things that they cannot do and that someone else needs to bear some of that burden. It comes back to what I said at the beginning, isn't it? You ask a lawyer a question, you'll probably get an "it depends" answer.
No, and I think that's totally, and there's a million variables in one person's life per hour, right? And I wholly agree. I don't think that the parents are absolutely responsible, but you have to play a role. My kids are 8 and 5, and like I am very active in what they are currently watching. There are some things like they started calling each other idiots, and I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. And they're like, well, such and such a YouTuber said. I was like, okay, maybe we need to keep away from that. And you have to talk to your kids. But I think that you pointed it out earlier. I'm in a position, I'm not working 3 jobs. I am home with my kids. I can see my kids. I can sit down and have the energy to talk to my kids about that. Not everyone's in that state. But right now we're outsourcing our parental supervision to some company who is not responsible to you. They're responsible to their shareholders.
Yeah. And the answer sounds a lot like universal basic income, but there we go. I should probably think about going and doing some work, but you mentioned a quiz earlier, and I like quizzes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So now for the real reason I asked Neil here is to give them an opportunity to win a prize of a lifetime. Our prize today is a silly wig and a gavel. Thought about a subscription to Laws, the classic service that gives you information on every law around the world, but we figured it's just law. How hard could it be, really? I mean, there's like only one, I think, right? Are you ready for the quiz, Neil?
Go for it.
Favorite movie, and why is it Spaceballs?
My favorite movie is inevitably Spaceballs, but more realistically, it's probably either V for Vendetta or Hackers or War Games, something along those lines.
All classic movies. And actually, was it your timeline someone was talking about wanting the pocket reform because it reminded them of Hackers? I was like, I so want
that was
now.
Somebody else that I boosted, but I absolutely sympathise for looking at a cool computer in an older film, looking at it and going, yeah, I want one of those. In theory, I'd love a DeLorean from Back to the Future. In practice, I don't want a DeLorean. I'd much rather better cycle network. But you know what? A DeLorean's still quite cool.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's that idea of it looks so amazing. And then when you own it, you're like, God, this is work. No.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't do time travel either.
What? Are you sure? I saw a documentary about it.
Sure, but I have a feeling some lawyer would have put that in the small print.
Next question is Linux, law, or puns?
I only understood the first word in that. So I think my default answer is Linux. The second one sounded like wah.
Law.
Law. I thought you said wah, the noise an orc in a sort of a miniature campaign might make. And I thought, I quite like orcs. I quite like miniature gaming. But I wouldn't have picked orcs for that. I like the mix of them all together. I like technology and law, and the puns just come out and I can't really stop them. So I'm going to go for all of those.
Badger, mushroom, or snake?
Well, badger, obviously. Badger. You get more badgers than you do mushrooms, and far more than you get snakes.
That's a good way to look at it. That's a very logical way to look at it.
Yeah. I would say the answer to that question is black and white. I have already used that today for someone who wrote a wonderful blog post mentioning a panda. for doing that. But I mean, unless you want to bring up zebras, I don't think I'm going to need to make that joke again today.
What does an alternative universe Neil do?
The same as this Neil does, but
Okay.
he gets to do it for free for a load more people and not have to worry about doing some of the stuff that, it's interesting enough, but there's a whole load of other stuff I could do to help a lot more people if I didn't have to try and earn money from doing it. So probably the same kind of thing, but
Okay.
for free and for more people.
Okay. Just to let you know, I contacted an alternative universe Neil. You know, there's infinite, but the one that I talked to, and I called him on my alternate universe phone. Don't ask. It's very technical. But for me,
Phones used to be 2 cups and a piece of string, so you've just gone for the wireless version.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Alternative universe Neil is actually a lawyer. Oh, wait, sorry. I misread that. He's a lawner. He goes around and talks to people's lawns. I'm not sure if that's actually his job or he just likes doing that, but I'm sure the lawns are good listeners. It's not like they're going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, that is a job where the grass really does seem greener on the other side. You wrote these, not me.
And he didn't know that these are coming. That's perfect. All right. The next question. Linux law or wait, sorry, I already did that one. That's double jeopardy. You know, I'm clear for that one. NFT, metaverse, or AI?
Sort of.
There you go.
Go away. Next question.
As usual, the last question will be sent telepathically to Neil. I will send it. I'll let you know when it's there. You obviously know you're telepathic. But for our audio listeners, I like to be verbal so that they can know that it's there, and then I'll let you answer the question. Okay, you ready? Okay, what's your answer?
That's just rude.
It's a valid question.
It is a valid question, but I've left my ruler somewhere else. Can't do that.
Congratulations, you got every answer either correct or incorrect. Good job. A community member was on their way to deliver your prize, but before they got there, we decided it'd be more fun to cosplay as whatever the guys are that wear the funny wigs and wave the gavel and sip the tea. And I think they're just called British, but I don't really know.
We don't have gavels in the legal system
What?
here.
You don't?
No, we don't have those. Those are not something that forms part of our legal system.
Go
wigs,
figure.
Yes, I'm probably getting to a point where a wig's not a bad idea, but yeah, no gavels here.
Go figure. A lawyer would ruin my joke.
There we go. We ended on a fact. And it's taken us about an hour and 17 minutes to get to a fact, but we have ended on a fact.
We did. So thank you so much for joining me to deal.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Neil. Not to Neil. He is not. His name is Neil. This was an absolute blast. I had a great time. I hope you had a good time too.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me, Ozoned, and happy Monday.
Oh God. Just the rest of the week we got to get through, right? Piece of cake.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. But thank you so much. Real pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone live and afterwards for joining me. You're all wonderful folks. Let's take time to express compassion, empathy, and let's learn from each other. Don't forget to tip your admins, your developers, and this only works because of folks like yourselves contributing not only donations, but your time, your energy, your passions, your empathy. Try to empathize with folks, even those people that you're like, no, they're just an idiot. Take some time to at least try. This won't work without all of us as a community together. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.